The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council was the most important event in the universe. Every major species sent their strongest leaders, their wisest minds, and their most powerful warriors to sit at the massive circular hall. The air was thick with tension as alliances were formed, deals were made, and sometimes threats were exchanged. But despite all the noise, one seat remained untouched for centuries. It was a large black chair with the symbol of Earth engraved on its back. It stood there like a ghost, a silent reminder of something everyone wanted to forget. The seat had been empty for so long that no one dared to mention it anymore. No one asked why. No one even looked at it. It was as if the very existence of Earth had become a forbidden topic. But Commander Rithan was different. He was young, ambitious, and too curious for his own good. Sitting among his people, the HFY Dominion, he couldn't help but stare at the empty seat. It made no sense to him. Every species in the council fought for power, for influence, for control. Yet, here was a seat that belonged to a species long forgotten, and no one even tried to claim it. He leaned closer to his superior, Admiral Cothran, a hardened warrior with scars across his reptilian face. "Admiral, why is Earth's seat still here?" Rithan asked in a hushed voice. Cothran stiffened, his red eyes flashing with irritation. "Do not ask that question, Commander," he whispered harshly. "Some things are better left buried." "But why?" Rithan insisted. "If humans are gone, why does the Council still keep their seat? Why has no one taken their place?" Cothran exhaled slowly. "Because no one wants it." Rithan frowned. "That doesn't make sense." Cothran turned his gaze away from the empty seat, as if even looking at it was dangerous. "The last time someone tried, they vanished." A cold chill ran down Rithan's spine. "Vanished? You mean they were killed?" "No," Cothran shook his head. "They simply disappeared. No trace, no message. Their entire species, wiped from existence." Rithan stared at him, his mind racing. That was impossible. In a galaxy filled with wars, assassinations, and advanced technology, people died all the time. But for an entire species to vanish without a single trace, that was something different. That was something terrifying. The meeting continued, but Rithan barely heard any of it. His eyes kept drifting back to the empty seat. His thoughts kept circling around the mystery of Earth. Every history file he had ever read told the same story. Humans were once part of the Galactic Council. They were ambitious, inventive, and stubborn. Then, suddenly, they were gone. But why? He needed to know the truth. That night, while the rest of the delegates feasted and celebrated, Rithan sneaked into the Council's Grand Archive. The halls were dimly lit, lined with towering databanks, filled with the knowledge of thousands of species. If the truth about Earth was anywhere, it would be here. He activated a console and typed in Earth history, Ingenuity. Rithan's brow furrowed. That was strange. Every known planet in the galaxy had public records, yet Earth's files were locked. He tried again. Humanity. Last known records. Access restricted to High Command. His pulse quickened. Someone had erased humanity's past. But why? What were they trying to hide? A new idea struck him. If he couldn't access the records, maybe he could find Earth himself. Using an old navigation database, he searched for Earth's last known location. He expected to find it labeled as a dead world, a lifeless rock drifting in space. But the coordinates were missing. Earth's very existence had been deleted. Rithan leaned back, his heart pounding. This was bigger than he thought. The Council hadn't just forgotten Earth. They had erased it. He clenched his fists. If the Council was hiding something this massive, then it meant there was only one way to get answers. He had to go there himself. That night, he stole a small reconnaissance ship and set a course for the Sol system. As the stars stretched around him, one thought kept repeating in his mind. Why was Earth's seat empty? And what would he find when he got there? Rithan's hands tightened around the controls as his ship soared through the void of space. The Sol system had been erased from every known galactic map, but he had managed to find fragments of old navigation data buried deep in restricted archives. He wasn't sure if the coordinates were still accurate, but he had no other choice. If the Council had gone to such lengths to erase Earth, then whatever truth they were hiding had to be worth the risk. The journey was long, and the silence of deep space felt heavier than usual. His ship's AI reported no signs of activity in the system, yet something about the emptiness made his skin crawl. The closer he got, the more he felt an unnatural stillness, as if the void itself was watching him. As he approached the location where Earth should have been, his ship's sensors flickered strangely. At first, he thought it was a malfunction, but then he saw it. Nothing. There was no planet, no debris, no remnants of a civilization. Just an empty part of space where an entire world should have been. His chest tightened. It wasn't destroyed. It wasn't abandoned. It was simply missing. He ran several scans, trying to make sense of it, but the results didn't add up. There was no gravitational pull, no planetary dust, nothing to indicate that a planet had ever existed there. It was as if Earth had never been real to begin with. That was impossible. He activated deeper scans, pushing his ship's sensors to their limit. The system struggled, but then something strange happened. A distortion, a faint ripple in space, barely detectable, but it was there. His fingers hovered over the controls, hesitating for just a moment before he engaged his engines and moved toward it. As soon as he crossed the threshold, his ship's alarms blared. Space worked around him, twisting unnaturally. It felt as if he had passed through an invisible curtain, and suddenly, the emptiness was gone. Before him, floating in the vastness of space, was Earth. His breath caught in his throat. The planet looked untouched, its blue oceans and green continents exactly as they were in the old records. But there were no signals, no transmissions, no satellites orbiting it. The world was silent, yet undeniably there. It had been hidden behind some kind of cloaking field, a level of technology beyond anything Rithan had ever seen. His heart pounded as he carefully navigated closer, his eyes locked on the planet that was supposed to be erased. He had found Earth, but now the real question was who had hidden it and why. His ship's systems struggled to adjust to the strange energy field surrounding the planet. He tried to establish communication, but all frequencies remained silent. There was no response, no welcoming signal. He hesitated before finally making the decision to land. As he entered the atmosphere, he expected defenses, warnings, anything that would indicate that someone was still there. Instead, there was only silence. The cities below seemed intact but empty. There were no signs of war, no destruction, no decay. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. His ship touched down on what appeared to be an old landing site. The structures around him looked pristine, untouched by time. As he stepped out onto the surface, a strange sensation washed over him, like he was being watched. But there was nothing. No movement, no sound, just the unsettling quiet of a world that should not exist. He took a deep breath and moved forward. He had come for answers, but something told him he was about to uncover something far bigger than he had ever imagined. Rithan moved cautiously through the empty streets of what was once a thriving human city. The air was clean, the buildings stood tall, and yet there was not a single sign of life. No vehicles, no flickering lights, no distant hum of machines. It was as if the entire world had paused in time. He had expected ruins, evidence of war or natural decay. But instead, the city looked perfectly preserved, as though its people had simply walked away and never returned. His footsteps echoed unnaturally loud as he made his way through the abandoned metropolis. He peered through the windows of shops and homes, finding everything in order. Fresh-looking clothes hung in store displays. Books remained stacked neatly on shelves. In one house, He saw a table set for dinner, plates arranged as if the meal had just been served. But there was no food, no bodies, no explanation. It was like humanity had simply vanished in an instant. A chill ran down his spine as he made his way toward what looked like a government facility. If there were any records left, they would be there. As he stepped inside, motion-sensitive lights flickered to life. The building still had power. That meant someone had maintained it, or something had been built to run indefinitely. He moved quickly, accessing the nearest terminal. The system was heavily encrypted, but after some effort, he managed to break through. What he found made his stomach tighten. There were no recent logs. The last recorded entry was over 300 years ago. The message was simple, yet haunting. The last phase is complete. We are ready. If you are reading this, you are not meant to be here. Rithan's fingers hovered over the console. The last phase. Ready for what? He searched deeper, finding fragmented audio logs. Static filled his ears before a distorted voice broke through. They're coming. We knew this day would come. We are not running. We are not hiding. We are ascending. The recording cut off abruptly. His pulse raced. Ascending. What did that mean? Where had humanity gone? And who were they waiting for? A sudden sound made him spin around. It was faint, barely noticeable, but in the absolute silence of the city, it felt deafening. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the building settling. It was something moving. He slowly reached for his weapon, scanning the shadows. For the first time since arriving, an uneasy realization sank in. He was not alone. Rithan's breath slowed as he tightened his grip on his weapon. The sound had come from deeper inside the facility, a faint rustling. Deliberate, controlled. He wasn't imagining it. Someone or something was here with him. The silence of the city had been unsettling before, but now it felt suffocating. He wasn't sure if he had just discovered something, or if something had just discovered him. He took slow, measured steps forward, his boots barely making the sound against the polished floor. The corridor ahead was dimly lit, the overhead lights flickering occasionally. His heart pounded in his chest as he reached a corner and froze. A door at the far end of the hall was slightly ajar, moving ever so slightly, as if someone had just passed through. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to get off this planet, but he had come too far to stop now. He reached for the panel beside the door and overrode the security lock. With a quiet hiss, the door slid open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. His breath caught in his throat. Inside, the walls were lined with tall, cylindrical pods, stretching from the floor to the ceiling. The glass on most of them was fogged over, obscuring whatever lay inside. The entire room pulsed with a dim, bluish light, and the air was thick with the hum of dormant machinery. He stepped closer, wiping away the condensation on one of the pods. His blood ran cold. A human. The figure inside was perfectly still, eyes closed, their bodies suspended in some kind of stasis field. They looked peaceful, untouched by time. Rithan quickly checked the other pods. Hundreds, thousands, all of them the same. Men, women, even children, an entire population preserved, waiting. His mind raced. This wasn't an abandoned world. This was a sleeping one. But why? What were they waiting for? His fingers danced over the nearby control panel, attempting to access the system logs. Most of the data was corrupted, but a single message remained intact. Stasis activated. The war will come. The others are not ready. We will wait until the galaxy understands why we were feared. Rithan's stomach twisted. A war. The galaxy had long feared humanity, but no one had ever truly understood why. Had the humans willingly placed themselves in stasis, waiting for the right moment to return? Or had something else forced them into this state? A cold realization hit him. If the stasis field was still active, then someone was maintaining it. That meant he was not the only one awake on this planet. A sudden whisper behind him made him spin around, weapon raised. He wasn't alone. and whoever was here had been watching him the whole time. Rithan barely had time to react before the lights in the chamber dimmed, casting long shadows across the room. The hum of machinery grew louder, as if the ancient systems were stirring awake. A presence lingered in the air, silent, unseen, but undeniable. He gripped his weapon tightly, his breath shallow, every instinct screaming that he was no longer just an observer. Then a voice, low, mechanical, and ancient, echoed through the chamber. "You were not meant to find this place." Rithan spun around, scanning the darkness. The voice wasn't coming from the pods. It wasn't human. It was something else. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A tall, metallic figure emerged from the shadows, its form sleek and unnervingly humanoid. Its eyes glowed faintly with a cold, blue light. Rithan stepped back, heart pounding. A machine. A guardian. "They sleep because they must," the figure continued, "because the galaxy is not ready for them." Rithan swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The figure took another step forward, its movements smooth and deliberate. "I am the Watcher. I was left behind to ensure they wake when the time is right, and to ensure that no one disturbs them before then." The weight of the words settled on Rithan like a crushing force. Humanity hadn't vanished. They hadn't been destroyed. They had chosen to wait. But for what? A war? A threat the galaxy had never seen. He glanced back at the thousands of sleeping humans, preserved in their silent pods. If they woke up now, after centuries in stasis, what would they find? A galaxy that still feared them, or one that needed them. The Watcher tilted its head slightly, studying him. "You should not be here. Leave, before it is too late." Rithan's mind raced. He had come seeking answers, but now he had even more questions. He had uncovered a secret that could shake the entire galaxy. But the real question remained, was the galaxy ready for the return of humanity? And more importantly, would humanity show mercy when they finally awakened? Rithan stood frozen, his mind racing. The Watcher's presence was overwhelming, its metallic frame exuding a quiet, unwavering authority. The message was clear: leave or face the consequences. But how could he walk away now? He had stumbled upon a truth that could change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. He took a cautious step forward, lowering his weapon slightly. Why? Why were they put in stasis? His voice was steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. What were they waiting for? The Watcher's glowing eyes flickered, as if considering whether to answer. Then, in a voice as cold as deep space, it spoke. Because the war was not theirs to fight. Rithan's stomach tightened. A war. The Watcher continued, its words slow and deliberate. Humanity understood something the rest of the galaxy did not. Conflict was inevitable. It would come, whether they chose to fight or not. But they saw beyond the first war, beyond the second. They saw the final war, the war that would decide everything. Rithan felt a chill creep down his spine. And they chose to sleep through it. They chose to wait. The Watcher stepped closer, its metallic form reflecting the dim blue glow of the stasis pods. They knew the galaxy would not listen, that no warning would be enough. So they stepped away. They left their seat empty. And now, it paused. Now the time is near. A sudden realization struck Rithan like a lightning bolt. The war the Watcher spoke of, it hadn't happened yet. Humanity had predicted it. They had seen the downfall of civilizations, the collapse of alliances, the inevitable spiral into chaos. And rather than waste themselves fighting battles that wouldn't matter in the end, they had done the unthinkable. They had prepared. His mouth felt dry. When will they wake? The Watcher's gaze locked onto his, the eerie blue glow intensifying. When the galaxy is on its knees. A deep hum vibrated through the facility, and Rithan realized the pods were beginning to react. Faint pulses of light rippled through the chamber, like a heartbeat beneath the surface. The Watcher turned its head slightly, as if listening to something unseen. You should not be here. Rithan took a step back, his instincts screaming at him to leave. He had seen enough. He needed to warn the others. But as he turned to flee, the Watcher spoke one final time. When they rise, the galaxy will understand why they were feared. The door slammed shut behind him. And for the first time in centuries, humanity's return had begun. Rithan ran through the dimly lit corridors, his mind reeling. The Watcher's words echoed in his head. The galaxy will understand why they were feared. The stasis pods were beginning to stir. Humanity, silent, absent, yet never truly gone, was waking up. Outside, the ruined city stretched beneath a darkened sky. He had come expecting to find the remains of a forgotten civilization. Instead, he had uncovered a sleeping giant. The galaxy had long wondered why humanity had left, why their seat among the stars had remained empty. Now, Rithan knew the truth. They had never left. They had been waiting. A distant tremor rumbled through the ground beneath him. The city's long-dead power systems flickered to life. Human technology, ancient yet still powerful, was activating. Rithan stumbled to a halt, his breath coming in short gasps as he turned to look back at the towering structures behind him. Then he saw it. Far above, something shifted in the sky. A massive structure, hidden behind layers of cloaking fields and distortion barriers, was beginning to reveal itself. The shape was unmistakable. A fleet. Not just a handful of ships, but an armada, waiting in silence, orbiting the planet for centuries. The moment humanity awoke, their war machines would awaken too. His communicator buzzed violently. "Rithan, we're detecting." "I know," he interrupted, voice tight with barely contained fear. "It's them." A long silence followed. Then his commander spoke in a hushed whisper. Then the rumors were true. Rithan watched as the first of the colossal dreadnoughts powered up, its engines glowing with an eerie ancient fire. The rumors were understatements, he muttered. The galaxy had feared humanity once. But after centuries of exile, of silence, of waiting, they were about to learn what true fear really meant.